So tell me about this that you're presenting here, this idea of the.
So, have you heard about the Komagata Maru incident before?
I know a little bit about it. I've heard a little bit.
So, the Komagata Maru incident basically started in 1908 when, as you see here, this regulation or Journey Regulation Act was created, and it is basically kind of like a racist-based regulation or law that was created by the government with like pressure of the people of Canada, and it was kind of the ideal back then was like keep Canada white or like a white Canada because of like fear and you can see that in the anchor and in this memorial. So yeah, so starting with the chain up top, I found it's very important to tell a story as well in a memorial. So that chain is going to be pointed out, or would be pointed out towards India, kind of westward in Coal Harbor, where we would put it. And it was kind of telling the story of the distance but also the connection and the linkage between India and Canada, which is not really thought of today as there being any linkage, or but at the time it also represents the voyage between the ship from one place to the other, and what that meant. And then you go down to the anchor, which I talked about how it represents like the importance of this story, as well as just South Asian immigration to Canada. And then you have the Immigration Act, or the Continuous Journey Regulation, and that basically, I mean, I found in most memorials they kind of talk about the event and what happened, but I also found that having a representation or symbolism of what led up to the event is extremely important in not only educating the viewer, but also just raising it more, making the memorial more meaningful and
just having the whole story there.
Yeah, and really telling that story. So as you go down, the final part of the memorial is a log with an axe in it, and basically that represents is the influence that South Asian people had in Canada. So before all this regulation was made, and before kind of like the start of BC and like the lumber industry and kind of like our foundation, it was basically built upon divided into three different groups of people or ethnicities, and it was South Asian, Chinese, and white settlers. So it was almost equal. It was just that two of those three were not wanted. As you saw as you can see in other memorials and other events that happened in our history, it's kind of that same idea of fear of them taking our jobs, or of them taking our livelihoods, kind of like the other. But it's also important to remember that in the lumber industry, which is BC's kind of like foundational industry, the South Asian people played a large role in that beginning factor. So kind of just acknowledging that, as well as a linkage to the past, to the present, and what would happen if there wasn't this event and this discrimination and this fear, and where would our lives be today without that fear and without that discrimination. And because they probably would have had a lot more contribution to our nation, and our nation would be completely different. I think it would be better. I think in a quote from the Prime Minister, when in his apology, he said that he apologizes for the not having them as not ignoring the influence they could have had in our nation. And I think that's really important, because with all these events and all these horrible tragedies, it's also important to think about how it affects our lives today. And because here in Vancouver, there would probably be a lot less, not a lot less, but a lot more equal distribution of ethnicities. So also, you can't see it in this model, but as you flip through here, you see in each of the chain links, there's a photo, or it would be like a silhouette, kind of probably more like a steel or something silhouette of an emotion, or people, or a face with emotion, or a body feeling kind of stuck or captured, and that kind of represents the emotional connection between the viewer and the event. And you can hear about a number. You hear 300 people that were there. Some of them died when they came back, and it's tragedy. But what are you gonna do? And you don't really think about it much after. But if you can feel that emotional connection, because even though it was 100 years ago, emotions were a thing, since it's kind of like what makes humans humans. And having that emotional connection between this memorial and the people that were involved, allows you to really understand it and
empathize with
and be empowered to make the change, or do what you can do, or think about what you can do to make things better in your own community or society. So That's also what I noticed when I was looking at other memorials, is that individual connection is what really brings the viewer connected to the memorial and to the event.
Yeah.
So that's the memorial, and it would be about, as you can see this model, it's about 300 centimeters or 3 meters tall, which is about like 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of also showing how like size impacts the memorial and the significance of the event, and having that huge anchor in Cole Harbor where we put it would make people stop and realize like, whoa, what was this? Because it is a very looked upon event in our history.
Right. Well, cool.
Yeah.